Imagine being torn from your home, your land, and everything you hold dear, forced to march hundreds of miles through harsh terrain, subjected to hunger, disease, and the bitter cold. When thousands of Native Americans were forcefully transported from their homes in the southeast of the United States in the 1830s, the Trail of Tears, one of the most terrible periods in American history, began. This was the horrible reality they had to confront. The Trail of Tears was more than just a trek. It was a terrifying voyage that would forever change the history, present, and destiny of the indigenous people of the United States. A terrible and dismal era in the history of Native Americans in the United States is represented by the Trail of Tears. It refers to the 1830s forcible removal of many indigenous tribes from their native lands in the southeast of the United States to predetermined territory west of the Mississippi River. These tribes included the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole. The U.S. government ordered this occurrence, which led to great misery, fatalities, and the eviction of indigenous peoples from their homes. It is impossible to overestimate the importance of the Trail of Tears in Native American history. It acts as a striking reminder of the atrocities and injustices that were consistently committed against indigenous peoples throughout European colonialism and westward expansion. This incident serves as a reminder of the dire repercussions of government actions and of the Native American tribes' unwavering fortitude in the face of hardship. The cultural, social, and political dynamics of Native American tribes have been influenced by the Trail of Tears for many years. Native American communities in the Americas were multifaceted and flourishing before European settlers arrived. They had a complex tapestry of cultures, languages, and customs. They lived in a variety of places, including the huge Great Plains, the dry Southwest, and the heavily wooded Northeast. While some of these cultures were more nomadic or semi-nomadic and adapted to their unique settings, others were structured into sophisticated civilizations like the Aztec, Inca, and Maya. Numerous Native American nations had developed farming techniques, complex trading networks, and communal social systems that enabled them to sustain their societies for many generations. Beginning in the late 15th century, European colonization of the Americas had a dramatic and sometimes disastrous influence on Native American society. Native Americans had no protection to illnesses introduced by European settlers, like smallpox and measles, which caused enormous epidemics that wiped out their numbers. In addition, European powers tried to exploit the area and its resources, which led to encroachments on other people's territory, bloody battles, and the establishment of foreign political systems. Native Americans experienced land loss, cultural integration, and disruption of their traditional ways of life as a consequence. A crucial turning point in Native American history was marked by the Indian Removal Act of 1830, a significant piece of U.S. government legislation. This law, passed under President Andrew Jackson's direction, allowed for the eviction of Native Americans from their ancestral lands in the Southeast. The 5 civilized tribes, which included the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole tribes, were uprooted as a result of the legislation and transported to the Indian Territory that is the modern-day Oklahoma. The incident served as a catalyst for the terrible events that became known as the Trail of Tears, and served as an example of the government's agenda of westward expansion and dispossession of indigenous peoples. One of the most well-known Native American tribes, the Cherokee Nation, formerly controlled a large area in the southeast of the country, encompassing portions of what is now Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and North Carolina. The Cherokee, known for their complex civilization, created a distinctive and sophisticated culture with a written language, written laws, and a form of government like that of the United States. They were farmers who grew commodities including maize, beans, and squash. They also had a rich oral tradition that included tales, folklore, and religious customs. The Cherokee tribe struggled to adjust to the changing environment as European invaders encroached on their land. Under Sequoyah's direction, they adopted European farming techniques, built schools, and even developed the Cherokee syllabary, the first written language. In an effort to cohabit and adapt to the new world created by colonialism, the Cherokee people adopted European practices, which finally resulted in a more educated and integrated Cherokee civilization. However, this adaptability did not protect them from the subsequent pressures and injustices. A crucial moment for the Cherokee Nation was the signing of the Treaty of New Echota in 1835. A tiny group of Cherokees, known as the Treaty Party, rather than the majority of the tribe, signed this treaty. The Cherokee were forcibly removed from their native grounds under the terms of the treaty in return for reparations and territory in Indian Territory, that is Oklahoma. Despite the fact that the Cherokee people did not see this treaty as legitimate, the U.S. administration utilized it as a justification for the expulsion. The catastrophic Trail of Tears events, which uprooted thousands of Cherokee people from their homes and caused unimaginable misery and fatalities, were precipitated by the Treaty of New Echota. The Cherokee tribe was one of several Native American tribes that were forcibly removed down the Trail of Tears by the U.S. government. Native Americans were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands in the southeast of the United States under the terms of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which was approved by President Andrew Jackson and the U.S. Congress to make room for white settlers and agriculture. To carry out this program, the government used military force, while federal and state authorities intimidated and duped tribe chiefs into signing treaties ceding their territory. The presence of government organizations, military troops, and political figures highlighted the country's responsibility in Native Americans' suffering and relocation. Native Americans endured severe and tragic suffering and difficulties during the forcible expulsion. Whole villages were uprooted from the land they had lived on for generations, tearing apart families in the process. For the trek, they were often provided insufficient supplies and resources, which led to food shortages, exposure to the weather, and a lack of basic requirements. Extreme physical and mental anguish resulted from the displaced people's exposure to the harsh winter cold, malnutrition, and sickness. Many Native Americans considered the trek down the path to be arduous and degrading, since they were already weak from the loss of their customary way of life. The Trail of Tears had a significant and long-lasting effect on Native American communities. In several tribes, a significant section of the population perished or was displaced, upsetting customary patterns of life. The pain and profound feeling of loss caused by the forced displacement still have an impact on indigenous populations today. Because of the tragedy of the Trail of Tears, which left many Native Americans in a state of grieving over their ancestral lands, cultural memory, and identity have been shaped. There were significant cultural, economic, and psychological repercussions of the Trail of Tears. Native American communities lost their traditional knowledge and ways of life as a result of being cut off from their cultural legacy and ancestors' connections to the land. Many Native Americans fell into poverty as a consequence of the forcible relocation, which led to the loss of vital resources and economic independence. Within indigenous communities, the psychological effects of the Trail of Tears have taken the form of problems including intergenerational trauma, drug misuse, and mental health difficulties. Following the Trail of Tears, a number of treaties, laws, and court cases helped to define the relationship between the U.S. government and Native American tribes. Despite this, the U.S. government persisted in encroaching on tribal rights and territories, which gave rise to more legal disputes like the late 19th and early 20th century forced assimilation practices. Following the Trail of Tears, these legal and political events signaled a continuous battle for Native American communities' legitimacy, sovereignty, and justice. The Trail of Tears was renowned for Native American resistance and efforts to stop the forced deportation. To defend their rights and homelands, several indigenous people and leaders passionately fought the deportation programs. For instance, the Cherokee Nation contested the validity of the Treaty of New Echota and undertook legal action and diplomatic measures to stop the forcible deportation. Legal disputes and intermittent military skirmishes were among the resistance's tactics, although they eventually failed to stop the uprooting of several tribes. These acts of defiance show indigenous peoples' tenacity and bravery in the face of improbable odds. After the Trail of Tears, Native American tribes showed extraordinary resiliency. Despite the extreme challenges they faced, they strived to re-establish their communities and way of life in the new places they had been moved. They adjusted to new locations and situations by combining their conventional knowledge with their newly acquired talents. Communities came together, maintained their cultural traditions, created new ways of life, and forged linkages with other tribes that had also been uprooted. Native American culture's resiliency is evidence of their fortitude and tenacious spirit. Native American society's survival and resurgence have depended heavily on cultural preservation and revival initiatives. Numerous tribes made efforts to preserve their cultural history and transmit it to future generations, despite the challenges they encountered both during and after the forcible relocation. The documenting of oral histories and the preservation of indigenous languages, traditions, and practices were among the initiatives. Powwows, art, music, and storytelling are examples of cultural revival movements that have been instrumental in honoring and reviving indigenous traditions in the contemporary period. These initiatives have helped to maintain the distinctive cultural identities of Native American communities and to increase public understanding of their history. That's all for this video. We'll be back soon with another informative video. Don't forget to like and share this video. To keep exploring ancient history together, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Until next time!